Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the most must-see podcast there is, the 1&D podcast. I'm your host, Vikash. I'm joined with my co-host, Sagar. And today, we're going to be talking about the newest My Hero Academia movie, Heroes Rising.
Yeah, we went to go see it last Saturday. I think that would make it, last Friday, which would make it, I think, February 28th or 29th. So it's still pretty fresh in our minds, and we just want to talk about, some of the things we loved about the movie, some of the things that could have been better, and, just give our overall review of it. So just a fair warning, this will contain spoilers. And with that said, I think we can just get into discussing it. You want to start with the opening act of the movie and what you thought about it?
How about we give a whole, maybe gist of what we thought of the movie? Because me personally, yeah. I feel as though, you know me, I like my action. I like my, big fighting scenes and whatnot. But for some reason, there was something about this movie, I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it to the fullest. I'll get into it later, I suppose, but it was very enjoyable, I will say.
Oh, that's actually really interesting, because in terms of, this movie compared to the first My Hero Academia movie, this one had so much more action. It was basically, set up for the first 20 minutes, and then nonstop action, and I loved every moment of it. This movie is really high up there for me. I really love this movie.
And I feel like we remember it a little differently. For me, it wasn't the first 20 minutes that were set up. It was maybe the first, 40, 50. And that it's an hour and 30-minute movie, right? Hour 45. So it was a lot of setup involved in this, I feel.
You think so? I may be mistaken. I definitely want to watch it again anyway. So even if it wasn't the first 20 minutes, I do have to say that compared to the first movie, I feel like there was a lot more action.
It was definitely interesting.
Yeah, it was. And I guess I'll start. Overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I think based on what they have to work with in terms of not really building any plot points that are, consequential to the main storyline, they did a really good job with the villain and things. And I think this is one thing that some anime movies overall, just in general, have some trouble with, where it's really hard to bring an emotional weight, real consequence to a story, if people know that, hey, okay, this is a movie, the ramifications of this movie aren't really going to tie into the main storyline of the anime and the manga. Given that, I really still enjoyed this movie. I feel like they did a good job. The villain was interesting in the sense that they had unique powers. In terms of their backstory, it was very much still kind of covered in a veil in terms of, they didn't flesh them out that much as they typically do with villains in the main show. But they had interesting powers, and you got to see someone, again, this is a spoiler, who had multiple quirks, and it kind of sets up this future clash that Deku would have with the League of Villains and Shigaraki in the future, with someone who can also use multiple quirks. So to see how this could be a little taste of the future in that sense was really cool. And I really enjoyed the overall dynamic that this movie had. One of the main things I wanted more from the anime was really this build-up of this camaraderie between our main character Deku and then Bakugo, which this movie really focused on. These two were the driving force in the main fight, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And, some of the stuff from season 3 towards the end where they both fought and they're talking with All Might and how them working together could result in something even greater than if they worked separately. I think that they did a really good job tying those aspects into this movie. And overall, I really loved it. And they did a good job focusing on everyone. The setup, again, was okay. They're basically on an island with no, pro heroes, which again is kind of suspicious. But again, it's an island where there were 0 criminals. So, and in the movie, you could see on the map, it was pretty far away from mainland Japan. So, kind of hard to predict villains would be there. But again, yeah, in terms of plot, kind of an oversight to not have any pro heroes on the island. Other than that, I thought it had, it was a good movie for me. And what are you thinking?
So for me, it was interesting. But the biggest thing that I like about My Hero Academia is that character building. Like you said, they usually build these villains, and yes, they only had, a limited amount of time to do so, but what I feel as though they should have done is kind of maybe throw in more ways in which Nine was able to get those extra quirks that he got. Like they showed, in the beginning they're transporting him and whatnot, and then then it just jumps to everyone learning from their teacher. Oh, Eraserhead, you're gonna go on an island and do these menial tasks. There's little to no crime on it, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. This is hero work too. I did like how there was so much camaraderie involved in this. Like the entire class got involved and everyone had their moment to shine. Obviously, you had your two superstars in Midoriya and Bakugo. But the building of the villains is what usually... Like, there's manga warnings. My Villain Academia in the manga. They have many arcs devoted to just building villains in the manga. And I just feel as though, like, splicing in between, like, those scenes where, they're helping all the people on the beach or the elderly lady. That was funny. They could have spliced in some moments of Nine becoming who he was. Like, we understand why he is who he is and how he got to it, but the in-between moments, I feel, would have made him a more enticing villain.
I mean, yeah, that's a really good point. I that's totally something I think that would make a lot of sense. They did spend a lot of time, building this atmosphere of the island, which didn't last too long since the villains got there. And you get snippets of Nine's story. Like, it's still very, like, vague and in the shadows. I don't know if they're trying to go for this effect where they, like, wanted the audience to interpret what he was doing. But, he was saying things like, the strong will create the rules, and the strong will create, like, the laws, and only the strong will be the ones who are obeyed, and things like that. It's pretty generic stuff for a villain. And again, he seems like a really good villain in terms of the backstory potential they could have worked with. And my point about the limitation of time they have given, 90 minutes, I feel like, yeah, they could have definitely allocated more time from, like Kaminari jump-starting a tractor in a farm. Instead of focusing on that, yeah, they could have spent more time developing that backstory, because the character designs for the villains were awesome, in my opinion. Like, I loved all of their designs. The mummy guy was also cool, but, he was kind of off-screen really quick in the movie. But the Chimera guy looked super cool. He was like a wolf and, like, snake and then fangs and everything. Super awesome. The lady with the hair, it was a super interesting quirk. It was, like, really well animated. And then, of course, Nine with his quirks and his overall design. Like, these were, like, super well-designed villains, and they definitely had a lot of potential there. And, I feel like they did fall short, for sure.
I also feel as though one of Nine's quirks is to only walk everywhere he goes. Because that's all he did in pursuit of the final quirk, that he needed to just walk the entire time, which I thought was funny. I also... regarding Nine, I didn't like the two dragons coming out of his back. They should have looked cooler, in my opinion. Have some blue eyes, white dragon looking dragons coming out his back. Not some, like, I don't know. I feel like they could have looked, nicer, more complete. I mean, it was a cool quirk, don't get me wrong, but I feel as though they could have looked, like, more intimidating.
I mean, they were cool for me. I didn't really think one way or the other of it. I feel like, yeah, if they were cool-looking dragons, it would have left more of an impact, for sure. But I didn't mind it, if that makes sense.
I also saw on Twitter, actually, Nine, his design is completely ripped off of some other anime, I believe.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
1 second. It is called Tian from Feng Shen.
Oh,
like, okay, so he has, like, long white hair and two dragons coming out of his back.
Interesting. So
from what I saw.
Maybe,
I mean, it was only a snippet. I mean, they like to pay homage, right?
Yeah, I think it was more of like a homage kind of thing, I would say.
Yeah. I just thought, that was interesting. But, Nine is a very cool character. Nothing short of awesome is all his quirks and whatnot. One thing, as you know, I am a big fan of Tokoyami.
You are.
And I feel as though his fight should have been longer and more epic, given that he got into that enraged mode. He saw his teammate was hurt, and, when that happens, when he snaps, Dark Shadow is just unstoppable. But we only saw the enraged Dark Shadow mode for like what, 10 seconds maybe?
Yeah, not even. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think this was towards like the middle to the ending of the movie, like 70% through, when they're basically split off three of the villains into different paths, and they focused really well on the Todoroki fight with the Chimera dude. I forget his name. With the hair lady, yeah, like when he went that super like Dark Shadow mode where the shadow was taking him over, I was like, okay, we're gonna get this really amazing fight, and like I was left feeling like that ended way too quick. And I don't know why they did that. Maybe because it chose that was their creative decision. But I definitely feel like they could have done more with that, especially given the fact that this lady with the hair power seemed really, really strong, right? Like she could destroy all the ships in the harbor when she first got there with the hair. So she had some really big firepower, and she seemed pretty competent. So I didn't think that she got one-shotted by that claw there, but apparently she did. I guess that just shows how strong he is, but I felt like they could have definitely made that fight stronger. I mean, longer.
I just wanted to see more Dark Shadow. Tokoyami is the Escanor of nighttime, especially in that super Dark Shadow mode.
Yeah, he is.
That's just so fun to watch for me. I also feel as though they kind of... I know I'm going all negative about it, but, I'm critique of the movie, right? I feel as though they suppressed Todoroki. Like, this man is a phenom. He's half ice, half fire. And this is, like, obviously placed somewhere in the future of where the anime is currently. I remember you asking me where in the future Midoriya gets that...
that upgrade to a suit where he can shoot, like, air projectiles.
Exactly. That's happening literally right now.
Interesting.
In the anime.
Okay.
And so this is obviously placed later. I mean, okay, manga warnings as well. Endeavor had his scar, right?
Yeah, which is something I noticed, but I think they did just like on a side note of this, they did a good job of that because it was really subtle. And when I was talking to my sister who also saw the movie, and she's an anime original, so she knows nothing of the manga, she didn't really notice it. Which, I was surprised at. So I guess they did a good job just keeping that subtle because, it was with his flames on. But yeah, so that kind of gives you a context of where this was placed. And back to your point about Todoroki was, yeah, right.
So this is placed so far in the, like, not so far, but relatively far in the future, because where he gets it. He gets it in that big fight with the super big Nomu thing. And so, how distant this is, so you have to also understand where Todoroki would be in his powers as well. And so the fact that he's, I don't know, I feel like he's on that same level. I think the top players in Class 1A are Midoriya, Bakugo, Todoroki, and my boy, Tokoyami. That mother, if he gets in his enraged mode, if he can control that stuff, it's game over. He should be the number one hero, in my opinion.
I think you're forgetting Mineta. He's definitely on equal footing with those four.
I don't know how that MF is in Class 1A, if I'm being honest.
Oh, fun.
What, did you not immobilize the freaking robots?
That was the one of the fun facts that are in the manga volumes. Apparently, the rules said you can immobilize them, so he just threw his things and they got stuck in him. So they can't.
Yeah, I did know. I don't know why I say I didn't know. It was like,
that's how he got it.
So dumb. That entrance exam is so dumb, but it's okay. Our dog Midoriya got in there, so that's all that matters, right? What was I saying?
Oh yeah, Todoroki being not as strong as the other three.
Yeah, and I know it also goes to show how powerful that Chimera guy is, because he was super cool. That was a very well-made villain, and it shows because of how they suppressed not only Todoroki, but Tokoyami. Tokoyami was in the daylight when they first fought him anyway. But, it just feels as though he got the short end of the stick in this movie, as well as Tokoyami. This is obviously a movie to, show how great Midoriya and Bakugo are, their relationship and whatnot. Those are obviously the two main guys in Class 1A. But those two guys can't be shown as such, weaklings. Kind of lame in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, again, the impression I got was that Midoriya and Bakugo have totally left Todoroki in the dust after this movie. just based on the fact that Bakugo in this movie was incredibly strong. Like, he single-handedly took down one of the four people who came to the island, and he just seemed like on a next level. And like watching this movie, I knew he was strong, but again, the technique and his quirk, like you can see how like much work he's put into being where he is, and that was impressive. And the thing with Todoroki, I think, is I guess they're trying to develop his like fire and ice thing, where in this movie his ice got stronger, which he was, bringing the same mentality Endeavor told him about his fire, and then applying it to his ice sights. And I guess the matchup there also maybe didn't like equate to a good battle dynamic, where you have this super strong guy and the guy with fire and ice. But again, that doesn't make any sense, because the main fight of the tournament arc was between Deku, who has a strength quirk, and then Todoroki. But that fight was great because of the emotional like weight it had. I feel like this fight for him was just there. It was like a placeholder fight. It didn't feel as big as the other ones, and they did him dirty. I think Todoroki is definitely stronger than they showed him off to be. But at the same time, I guess they were trying to show that these villains are like no joke, and like you got to take them seriously. And I guess they're trying to portray that they're that strong that even Todoroki was having trouble with them.
Right. One thing they did do really well with this movie is that they built upon the anime and what happens in there, built upon like whatever previously happened. So like, I think what pushed Bakugo to be so good is that he knows that Midoriya has one for all, and he knows that he wants to be number one regardless of what Midoriya has, and so that's probably pushing him more. But at the same time, those motivations are still there for Todoroki, considering his dad's still Endeavor and he doesn't like his dad. I mean, he grows to like him a little more, I guess, but like still, it's a strange relationship to have, and you know what happens in the past and whatnot, and they didn't build on that, but you know that's happening and whatnot, because I believe there was a point in the movie where Todoroki was kind of leaning towards his ice when he's trying to embrace his fire. So I don't know. That was an interesting part too. One thing I didn't understand is when maybe it's like a timing thing, because maybe they jumped around in time, but when Hawks found out that there was a villain on the island and how bad this villain could be, Hawks is OP. Hawks quite possibly could be the number one villain. How old is he? Number one hero. He's like 20 years old, right? So it's
yeah, he's like where I'm in the manga, I've been introduced to his character, so I definitely know he's the real deal for sure.
Exactly, and you know how fast he can be.
Yeah,
he can fly at Mach speeds. Koro Sensei can go around the world multiple times with his Mach speeds. You would think that Hawks could get to this island super fast. I mean, maybe he couldn't battle Nine, but I feel like you know how good that guy is. I mean, maybe they're saving him for the future, but still, that guy is amazing, and it would have been cool to watch him fight in this movie.
Do you think they did that to hold his character introduction off for the anime and like keep his powers and his abilities secret until then? Because even in this movie, you get an idea of who he is, but they never like formally introduce his character, like his quirk. He's the number 2 hero and things like that. So do you think they're just kind of like holding back on introducing him to the mass like fandom because they haven't done so properly in the anime yet? I think that's probably the main reason.
Yeah, this was just like teaser essentially for the anime. Like you see Endeavor with his scar, you see Midoriya with that new power that he has, you see Hawks for the first time. It's like these are tiny things, but setting up for whatever's going to happen in the future in the anime. That being said, still doesn't make sense. Like, logically, Hawks would have been there and probably decimated everyone.
Yeah,
maybe not. Maybe Nine was just that OP.
But no, he would definitely provide some help, for sure.
Right, exactly. I'm just going through all my qualms that I can think of, really. The good parts about the movie I haven't even mentioned yet. Like, the character building between the students and the people of the island, that was great.
Yeah, that was definitely a good option.
They built a great relationship, right? So, like, and those two children, though I feel like they got too much screen time. If they didn't have that screen time, they wouldn't have been as impactful.
Yeah. I think we can talk about the two kids. It was really interesting to see that connection between Midoriya and the young boy. Almost like his mentorship role towards a aspiring hero, and how he's being encouraging to a kid who thought or is doubting himself as to whether he can be a hero or not. How Midoriya was in the same shoes, and then All Might came to him. And one of the main attractions of My Hero Academia was that continuing relationship between All Might and Deku, your mentor and then your apprentice. And you could see that on the flip side as well, right? With All for One and Shigaraki. Yeah. So those leadership mentorship things are really a strong point of the story. And it was interesting to see Deku take on this big brother leadership kind of role for this little kid who's very unconfident in himself, and he doesn't think his quirk can be used to be a hero. It's quite troublesome.
Quick tidbit.
Yeah, go for it.
Another mentor and mentee relationship that was shown in the movie that will happen in the future in the manga is Tokoyami and Hawks.
Yep.
So that one was great too, and Hawks is OP, Tokoyami's OP, so that's gonna be great.
I feel again, just based on this and then them introducing Hawks, and then that they're a mentor and mentee, but a general fan doesn't know that yet, right? So I think that again builds onto this idea that they're really trying to tease this aspect of it, hey, it's here, and people who read the manga know what's gonna happen, but general fans don't. So I think they're
right.
It's
and
another
then you're
tease.
watching it. You're watching it, and general fans, they're probably like, how does Tokoyami know who this guy is? Because when Hawks comes to pull all the rocks away and everything, Tokoyami immediately knew who he was. So it's it also gives you a general idea of where it falls in the timeline, because this is a canon movie.
Is it really?
This is part. Yeah, I think it's part of the canon.
I didn't know that. Where did they say that somewhere?
I think so.
Really? Okay, that's
maybe I'm talking out my butt, but
because typically movies are filler in terms of that. They're limited, like I was saying earlier. They're limited in what they can do in terms of repercussions of these movies, just given the fact that they don't really tie into the main storyline, and they don't really make reference. So, just for example, last movie was definitely filler because they didn't really make a reference of it or any of the characters in the anime after that or the manga. So, I mean, I'm surprised, but I guess it could be. I mean, I haven't read that much in the manga, so I don't know. But I think that some of the places where they have to pull the punches, I can give them a pass just because I know that they're working with this story and they really can't do anything too crazy because they have to be limited by the manga and anime going forward. They can't have anything crazy happen. So I give them a pass for that. But I'm going to take your word for it just because, you're much further in the manga than I am at the moment.
Heck yeah, dude. Really quick side note. I found the post that I saw for 9 imitating that other guy from the other anime. So 9 from Boku no Hero is imitating Tien from Fang Shen G. And this is on u/parallel unparallel.
Fang Shinji. That sounds really familiar. That's definitely a Chinese thing, though. It's not a Japanese anime.
Interesting. Okay. But so what this person says is 9 and Tien, they have both obviously long white hair, but they also have some similar powers. They both can control the weather, summoning massive thunders, lightning, I guess. They said thunder, but lightning. Transparent barrier. 9 can create a barrier out of thin air. Tien could create transparent barrier from his power to suppress the environment massively. Rapid regeneration, and both have dragons on their back. Very interesting. So it seems like 9 was obviously based off this guy. But also, I also like 9 because he's a big foreshadowing for what Shigaraki could be. Obviously, Shigaraki now is still where we currently are in the manga. He's still in the process of whatever's happening. We don't actually know what's what he's going through. He's going through some sort of transformation. I don't think he's getting one for all yet, or all for one yet. But he's going to be super strong, so that's going to be fun to watch. But yeah, that 9 could be a direct foreshadowing for what Shigaraki could be in the future, just in a limited fashion.
Yeah, it's definitely a teaser for the future. And I think we could like just briefly talk about the plot. We've been like mentioning it here and there, but essentially the heroes are on the island as like a internship kind of thing over the summer, I believe. And the main plot around 9 is that he's this villain who has his ideals, and his single quest right now is to attain this quirk that will decrease the toll on his body from having 9 quirks. And to accomplish this goal, he needs to steal this quirk from a child who has this, I think it's like a cell regeneration quirk or something. Yeah. So that's basically his main motivation. Get that quirk so he doesn't face the ramifications and negative consequences of overusing these quirks and harming his own body. So that's his main motivation for coming to the island. Which I guess they tie in nicely. It's a good justification for him. Again, it's plot convenience that this kid is on the island at the same time the heroes are. But again, it's a movie. Plot is plot. One of the interesting things I want to discuss a little bit, coming from where I am in the manga and knowing anime fans, there were quite a few spoilers, in my opinion, which again were not just explicitly stated. One of them which was Deku's quirks. If I'm not mistaken, I think he said that Deku had the capacity to use 8 quirks or 9 quirks, and that the only reason he couldn't steal the quirks was because he already reached his limit of 9, which is why he's named 9. Fun fact. So that's a major spoiler.
Actually, I think he had 8 quirks.
Who, 9?
Yeah.
Interesting. I guess he was saving this.
Trying to steal his 9th.
Yeah, saving the slot for...
I would assume.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming. I don't know.
So, again, that fact, big spoiler, that Deku has more quirks than just super strength, and this stockpile of power is like... It's a very big spoiler, and anime-only fans do not know this yet, especially where we are this season 4, plus the fact that I don't think we're going to get there in this season.
I think they know that he has at least 2 quirks. 1, super strength, and 2, crying.
Yeah, those ear ducts are gifts of God, for sure.
Eye ducts.
Eye ducts, yeah. I'm sick. Forgive me. So, the Deku thing, major spoiler. Again, I read the manga, so I wasn't really spoiled, but if I went in there being an anime only, I would have been like, whoa, what? Excuse me, what? And then they just...
But it's also one of those things that's smart. It's a one-liner thing
and then,
that you can just throw away in the heat of the moment because it's like a cool, epic time in the fight.
Yeah. And so if I was just an anime only, I would have been like thrown off by that. And I'm like, wait, you're just going to move on? Like, what is that about? And so my sister, for example, was curious about it. But again, like you said, she didn't really stick onto that fact because they moved on from it so quick. That was a major spoiler. The other major spoiler was the doctor. Again, this was like super, super... like subtle, where if you watched My Hero Academia and you saw episode 2 and the doctor, okay, and you saw this doctor, you know that they're the same people just based off their appearance. But again, that is such a subtle spoiler there that, hey, wait a second, that's the doctor that basically diagnosed Deku to not have a quirk. And again, that was a big spoiler for me because I did not know that yet. I did not know that this doctor was a bad guy. I learned that in this movie. And I'm assuming they're going to focus on that in the manga. But I was like, whoa, wait a second. What is this? So
you're wrong. It's a different doctor. They're twins.
Okay. Game over.
I'm just kidding.
So now I have all these theories in my head. Because, the funny thing is the manga, like years ago, people were theorizing that this doctor stole Deku's quirk. Like, this was a theory that's like 3 years old. Mm-hmm. And now it may actually have some like validation to it. I mean, I don't know. He could now the whole thing with Deku having an extra bone in his foot could just be all BS. Like, who knows? Like, why he doesn't have a quirk. So there's a lot of theories in my head right now, and that was another spoiler that was in the movie. That one was really subtle, so I don't really... It was clever on their part for including that, just so like people who are like know the series like got spoiled a little bit, and now they're like curious. And I think this is again, these spoilers have a reason for being there, right? I think that these spoilers exist to draw anime only people into the manga, because they're like, whoa, Deku has quirks. Whoa, this doctor is evil. I mean, I need to know what happens. I need to read the manga, right? So I think this is again another ploy to, because at the end of the day, these movies are there to raise awareness for the anime and the manga. So I think like this is just encouraging more people to get into the manga and like see what this is about. So I think it's genius, honestly. I have no problem with it. And so I think that was another major aspect of this movie that was really interesting for sure.
Yeah, dude. I feel as though they did a great job with having it being these tiny moments thrown in into these seemingly inconsequential, lines that are just thrown into big battles. But you figure out if you're paying attention, if you're paying close enough attention, then you can figure it out. But to a normie, I don't know if they'll figure it out, dude. I think it's just so quick, so fast. Like these tiny scenes, these little lines. Like you see Endeavor's scar for maybe 3 seconds total.
Yeah, that's it.
There's one line about Midoriya having multiple quirks. There's one frame where you see the doctor. So it's like you have to really be paying attention and have some awareness of what happened previously. Because for me personally, that stuff just doesn't stick in my head. You know what I mean? In terms of, hey, I've seen that doctor before, in episode 2 of the anime. You know what I mean? I'm not going to remember all that. I mean, I've watched
it's
YouTube
episode 2 and it's manga chapter 1.
Yeah, right. So like I've seen the videos, I've seen all that stuff. So and I've read the manga, so I know all that stuff right now. But I'm saying in general, for me personally, if I were just an anime only person, I would never have picked up on that because people look the same all the time in anime too. Anyway, it's like, oh, there's some throwaway doctor that said Midoriya doesn't have a quirk. Well, wait, actually, he has significance in the future. They definitely did a good job on that front.
And I think that again builds on the point that, hey, if you're this like really diehard anime fan and you can catch on to those details, that makes you the kind of fan that is more likely to pick up the manga after like noticing those spoilers, if you know what I mean. So like it makes it, those people are the easiest to convert into reading the manga because they're already such a big fan of the show. So I think again they all do it for marketing and to promote the entire series overall, and they do a good job of it.
And to make a lot of money for the movie itself.
For sure. This movie is doing really, really well, I heard. I think they pulled in over $10 million of revenue in that first weekend. And again, I think it's showing that anime and... Okay, this is like more just in terms of just general culture and not the movie, but anime has really been exploding in popularity. There's so many more people who are watching it. And I think that there's so many people who love this series and they're going to the theater to watch these movies. Because one, these movies are more accessible now in United States theaters, where in the past they weren't as like accessible. They would not play them as much. And now you have the option of like sub and dub and multiple showtimes over multiple days. I remember like 5 years ago, we would have like one showing of Dragon Ball Z and then for one weekend, and then that's it. And that's definitely changed over time. And I think that's just like great for the overall like business of anime, and they do a really good job because they put out a really good product.
Yeah, dude, the effect of globalization. The internet hasn't been around for very long, so now people are just, I feel like they're getting into these different cultures and different shows and different types of shows, and people are more open to anime. Like I just started really, I obviously still don't really watch anime comparatively to like, a lot of other people. I just watch those big shonens, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm branching out a little bit here and there. I'm watching more anime. I just started maybe a year ago, I'll say 2 years ago. And man, these movies are a great thing, but at the same time, I've seen what movies can do to an anime. The reason Seven Deadly Sins has such a trash studio now is because the movie did not perform as well as the original studio thought it would. And so they're like, maybe Seven Deadly Sins isn't as big as we thought, even though they are, top 10 shonen right now every single week. Everyone's reading it, everyone loves it, everything is amazing. No, let's just throw them away. We don't want to animate it. Great, good job, you idiots. You stupid idiots. I hate them. Stupid decision.
I think...
God, this new season is terrible. I'm not even going to get into it because it is annoying.
I think that's a good point, and your thing about, just watching shonen is something a lot of people start with. Like, even me, like, you're making much quicker progress than I did in branching out to different anime. Like, it was just Naruto, One Piece, Bleach.
Yeah, I mean, but you were also, like, juvenile at the time.
Well, I mean,
my mind is more developed.
Yeah,
at this
juvenile,
point.
and then into, like, the first few years of college where I was still pretty juvenile. That was like, yeah, so, and then you branch out, and then you realize, there's so much more to the medium. And the thing with the Seven Deadly Sins is, like, another thing that's very interesting with anime, because there's going to be so many amazing series, and some are, like, so much better than others, but the way they perform in Japan versus the way they perform on the international stage is so different. Like, just for example, like One Piece compared to My Hero Academia, in Japan, it's like no comparison. One Piece is so much better. Not better, but in terms of popularity, there's just so much further ahead than anything. But if you go to, like, the world stage, My Hero Academia probably beats it because there's so many fans of it. So some stories just translate better and more people can relate with it, like, globally. And I feel like, I mean, I don't know. Again, this is just pure speculation with the whole Seven Deadly Sins thing. Maybe they just overestimated what they thought they had in, like, a global audience kind of sense, which is unfortunate, and it resulted in the studio dropping it. But, like, that's, again, one of the shames of, anime adaptations, where sometimes you get, like, bummed out, and this is your first taste as to being disappointed in an anime adaptation not living up to the manga. So welcome to anime
there's
fans.
There's some validity to that, but at the same time, if you think about it, just there's so many animes out there.
Yeah.
And so many of them make movies, but there are only a select few that actually do well. Like, there was that one sad one that you didn't want to watch with me because you're a duty head. And obviously it would have been amazing to watch, but that one came out. It did decent. It didn't do amazing, but I heard it was great. But the ones that do well are the ones that, your Dragon Balls. The One Piece ones don't even do very well here.
Exactly.
It's like a diamond in the rough when it comes to anime movies performing internationally. And, they all come out internationally. But they're just only the cream of the cream of the cream of the crop actually perform well.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I think it just results in, like, the fans of the anime as well. Like, for example, some really good anime like One Punch Man, Attack on Titan, My Hero Academia do amazing here. But then you have such an amazing anime, like, from everything I've heard about, Assassination Classroom is so good. It's, like, on par, if not better than those series, but it's not as popular. So,
the greatest anime of all time.
I think I forget where you put it on your list in our last
number
podcast.
1.
There you go, number 1. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, some can be so much better than others, but I guess it just depends on who they attract, like, over, like, the international market. So it's almost a factor of luck sometimes.
One series that got super lucky from a single tweet is Demon Slayer. That ninja tweet probably just, what do you think? 10-fold, 20-fold, 100-fold their American audience?
Oh, I mean, for sure. There was a lot of, like, American, I mean, it sounds kind of like boomerish, but American, like, celebrities tweeting about it when episode 19 happened. And just on YouTube and in general do that. That was amazing. And again, that shows you that a good product can succeed. It just takes the anime to be really good. And in terms of Demon Slayer, it went above and beyond. And again, just talking about all this, it'll be super interesting to see how this movie, I think it's the Infinite Train arc movie, does in the States. Because this is going to be different from other movies. This is actually going to be manga material that's put into a movie format. So
hopefully we get a longer movie.
I hope
I'm
it's
tired
I
of
hope
these
it's
hour and a half movies.
I hope it's like longer than an hour and a half for sure. Because if they're gonna fit an entire arc, they may need to make it longer. And so again, this may do better than everything in the past because this is actual stuff that anime fans need to see because it's progressing the actual story. So getting numbers on that.
All they need is that ninja tweet though.
Yeah, dude, and like again with the ninja tweet thing, right? It again further shows that there's so many more people that are watching anime, and it's not this thing that oh you're a weeb, you watch anime. Like it's not like that. It's like it's amazing content that everyone loves to watch, and with more famous and like well-known people watching things, it just brings more people into hey, what is this? And like they watch it and then they love it. So the more the merrier.
All I'm saying is you need to watch Rick and Morty and BoJack Horseman. Those are classics.
I'm watching BoJack Horseman. It's really good.
Animes.
Yeah, dude.
The greatest animes of all time, in my opinion.
They definitely don't compare to Cory in the House, but they're up there. They're up there for sure.
Yeah, you're right. You got me there. Yeah. I think we should just talk about that ending now and close off this podcast.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because that ending was visually amazing.
It was beautiful.
I loved the ending. I'm going to say all the negative stuff first so that we can get to the positive part.
Yeah, go for it.
The fact, obviously in the end, Deku he in his mind is passing down One for All to Bakugo. And he understands that both of them will have... Did I say One for All or All for One?
Whatever. We know what you're talking about.
Right. So he understands that they both will have One for All and that they'll have this opportunity to beat 9. Now, the fact that 9 didn't go, whatever. But, he transferred it through 2 cuts in their fingers, and from that point on, it just became super epic.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the end, All Might says that Midoriya still has One for All, and Bakugo won't even remember that he even had it. And yes, that's a cop-out, but at the same time makes sense. Just canonically, you can't have Midoriya passing on One for All and then Bakugo has it for the rest.
Exactly, yeah.
But and obviously, that's also showing how strong the power of the ancestors are as well within One for All, because that's a big part of the manga in the future as well. And they have this ability to temporarily even give Bakugo that amazing power. But Bakugo has amnesia. He won't remember that he had One for All. He won't even remember all that even happened. How are they going to explain his 2 broken arms? He kind of had 2 broken... You saw his purple arms in the middle of the movie, so you know he has broken arms. Similarly to what Deku does. So maybe they'll just say, oh, you just went really all out. But, bro, even if he goes all out, he never breaks his arms. So that's kind of weird. Also, apparently, this was a potential final piece of the actual manga that I forget the manga creator's name, but he was considering using that as the final.
Horikoshi. That's
Horikoshi, yeah. He was thinking of using this dual One for All as the final end, but then he's like, it's not good enough. Let's just throw it in this movie.
Isn't that crazy?
I'm glad he did, because that's beautiful.
Like that was just like a spare idea. Like that's just like a spare idea. This is not gonna work. Let's just put it in a movie. Like that's an amazing like plot sequence, and like the entire thing was so cool.
And that's what made it so cool, right? The fact that this could have been a manga ender, but decided to use it in a movie.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't like, obviously, so One for All manifests differently in different people.
Mm-hmm.
But how did Midoriya know Bakugo would immediately be able to use One for All into its fullest capabilities to exactly where Midoriya is currently? Obviously, I understand it's the power of the ancestors that did all that gave Bakugo all that power. But it doesn't make sense. Like, Bakugo could have easily not understood how to use any of it because Midoriya didn't. He had to, like, build it all up. But then Bakugo was able to immediately go, obviously, it's a movie. They gotta do it. But it didn't make sense.
Yeah, I feel like at the time when that happened, I was, like, overanalyzing it. And the best justification I could come up with was, well, when first Midoriya had to obtain the power, he had to go through all that harsh training just to be able to be, like, a vassal for the power. And in this case, what we've seen of Bakugo's character throughout the anime is that this guy is a dedicated hard worker in terms of honing his craft and his quirk and his combat ability. So in terms of just physically, he's already suitable for the quirk. Now the entire factor of him learning how to activate it, again, might not... I don't think it makes any sense, like you said. But again, it could be like one of those like previous users of the quirk told him how to do it, like when he had the quirk, if you know what I mean. Like they talked to him, like like in his conscience or something. Again, it doesn't really matter because this is all non like canon. But that's the best reasoning I could find.
I have a theory.
You have a theory? What is it?
A game. Just kidding.
Please don't.
A film
do that.
theory.
Oh, Jesus.
So, dude. Okay. So there is a current theory.
Yeah.
That the second user of One for All was Bakugo, who traveled back in time. Because when you see the silhouettes of all the One for All users, the second and third users are always silhouetted, but you can always see the first, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and so on, obviously. You can see those actual people, but they always silhouette 2 and 3. And 2 and 3 look suspiciously like Bakugo and... what's his name? Red Riot.
Kirishima.
Kirishima. They look suspiciously like those two. So what if, when Midoriya passed the quirk on, Bakugo was able to manifest the powers so easily because he was the second user of One for All?
That's really, really crazy and ludicrous, but given that people were theorizing about the Doctor 3 years ago and it makes some sense now, I could buy it, honestly. Like, that's interesting, and when I get caught up to the manga, I'm definitely going to have to look into that theory. That could be really interesting, now that I think about it. Oh, man.
Dude.
Okay.
They show some silhouettes. Look it up. Even after this, you can see the silhouettes. Mm-hmm. Number 2 and 3 look like those two, and it's kind of suspicious.
Interesting.
And you could theorize, oh, maybe Bakugo had to go back in time to tell the first user, hey, you have this quirk, the quirk to pass down a quirk. Which, obviously, that's kind of strange. But, like, you have the quirk to pass down a quirk, so you must pass it down to me so I can pass it down and then pass it down and pass it down. And you need to do this for the survival of the rest of the future. And so, you know, that could tie in pretty darn well, dude.
So, yeah, that could. And you already know how I feel about time travel as a plot element in movies. I absolutely hate it. So, I hope that if they do this, they do it well. It's definitely something in the realm of reality in terms of the My Hero Academia universe. We've already seen really OP quirks like Ares rewinding time, right? Rewinding humans, pardon me. So a time travel quirk is not out of the realm of possibility. It's definitely something that
but the most overpowered quirk is Tokoyami's.
Given certain conditions, yes, it is, for sure.
Indeed.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the GOATs.
He's just going to engulf the world and take over.
Yeah, he could do that. You know, just go blow out the sun.
Yeah, dude.
Live your... however long the Earth can survive without the sun. You'll be the strongest.
Be God.
Yes.
He will be... instead of Tokoyami, he'll be Tokokami.
That makes sense. Anyway, no, that's an interesting theory. One thing I also now was super curious about, right, is we all know Bakugo's quirk, right? He sweats nitroglycerin, which he can explode and make, like, explosions and, you know, use it for, like, a variety of things. So, when he gets the One for All quirk from Deku, I feel like his own quirk just jumped to this final form amazing level where he was creating suns in the palm of his hand and melting mountains and hurling it at people. I feel like the quirk...
Escanor Jr.
I feel like the One for All quirk made his quirk stronger. Did you feel that way?
I mean, that's what One for All kind of does.
Like, okay, so again, I haven't read that far in the manga, so I don't know if... Actually, I did. You are right. It amplifies quirks. Oh man. Okay. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Because, man,
yeah.
Again, so that could be that. But if Bakugo can achieve that through, like, sheer dedication and hard work, which we all know he can easily do, like, just given his character, he is gonna be a force to be reckoned with in the future. That man is gonna be a problem. Oh my goodness. If that's his...
Yeah, he'll have a good time as the number 3 hero behind Midoriya and Tokoyami.
No, Tokoyami... You already know Tokoyami's a bad matchup. If this man can create a literal sun in his hand with his, like, explosions, Tokoyami's not going to stand a chance.
Tokoyami will predict it and engulf his sun with darkness. He'll become a god of destruction and Hakai that thing.
Okay, well, we'll see about that in the future. But again, that's another cool thing I just realized, that if that's Bakugo's future potential, oh man, I really want to see that in a fight later. That's gonna be epic. And then overall, man, yeah, this movie was really good. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it better than the first movie. I had some minor gripes with it, but not as many as you for sure. Kind of surprised you had those, but you made like those are some good criticisms. I kind of just turned my mind off when I went in. I just enjoyed the ride. Overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I would definitely do want to go watch it again just to catch things I probably missed, given how subtle they were with a few things. And yeah, super good movie. You should definitely go watch it.
I definitely enjoyed it too. I mean, those are things that, I noticed, but I can just be like, okay, that doesn't make sense, but continue. Because, I don't know, it's very hard for me to dislike a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's a bad movie. I don't know why. It's just like, it's not even low expectations. I'm just there for the ride.
Yeah.
And like, if you put that much time and effort into a movie, it's probably good. The only movie that I have not liked in theaters, you were there, Dunkirk.
That was a terrible movie.
That thing felt like it was dragging on. I felt like I was watching a documentary in class at 7 a.m. in high school. Like, okay, let's not get into it.
That's another
whole nother.
That could be another podcast.
We probably enraged a bunch of people, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Hey man, I'm done. That's all I have. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I
enjoyed
definitely
it for
did
sure.
too. Definitely worth a watch for sure.
Definitely. All right, dude. Well, if that's everything, thank you for watching the 1ND podcast. This was a fun one. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure.
Please go and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, hey, maybe even YouTube. We'll probably start uploading these on YouTube too. Any support, that would be appreciated.
All right, thank you guys for listening, and 1ND out.